Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm recording my synthesis and vocal readings of passages most prominent to me from Book 54 in my Book Week series, Man and His Symbols, edited by Carl Jung. Think about something with me for a moment. We are consistently processing so much stimulus from our external world, and the extent to which our external world is associated with our experience of identity is largely mysterious to us. We like to believe that we are in charge of our own decisions and behaviors, but when it comes to our belief systems, where does the rubber meet the road between believing something because of the security that it provides to believe it and believing something because it's true? It can be said that there are plenty of things that are true that many of us refuse to believe. For instance, that we as human beings contain opposing values along the continuum of human nature, darkness as well as the light, the ugly as well as the beautiful, and that our human experience will inevitably involve experiences that could be characterized as painful as well as those that would be characterized as pleasurable, as one cannot be detected without an experience of the other. I think that a refusal to examine and accept the darkness in our human nature ensures that the darkness will express itself. The more we accept the totality of what human nature entails, the more closeness we experience with the origin of our energy. And I think the less that we examine and accept it, the more we will express the aspects of our human nature that we would wish to suppress in ourselves, that we likely think we are suppressing. Now, suppression causes an inharmonious relationship with ourselves. Many in modern times refer to this as anxiety, and so many of us mitigate our anxiety through escapism, using alcohol, pills, overeating, self-harm to one degree or another, or we engage in or create situations that allow us to move the uncomfortable energy outward, such that we identify it as separate from ourself. And this manifests as arguments or conflicts, interpersonally or collectively, politically. Neither of these examples of coping mechanisms solve the problem. In fact, they perpetuate it and distance us from the source of our energy. I think that it is in intimacy with the source of our energy that we find alignment between our values and our behavior, between the way we are behaving and the way that we would most want to behave. It is, in my experience, in intimacy with the source of my energy that I'm able to make friends with the parts of my human nature that I may not have identified with wanting to make friends with. And in doing this work, I begin to see others so differently. Compassion, understanding, a wish to understand when I don't, is of itself so. Carl Jung referred to our shadow. It's an element of our nature that, when accepted and forgiven, won't need to speak up at such high volume. When we invest in this work, we begin to notice more and more the impact of other individuals investing in this work as well. Starts to feel like grace is falling into our pathway, multiplying itself. Without further ado, I'll move into the vocal readings from this wonderful book. Enjoy. Man and His Symbols, edited with an introduction by Carl Jung. Let's take a look inside. I'm going to do my best on these pronunciations. This book is also written by M.L. von Franz, Joseph L. Henderson, Jolandi Jacobi, Aniela Yaffe. And we can see here a breakdown of the contents of this book. and the subjects that each of the authors of this book focused on. Page 33. In our conscious life, we are exposed to all kinds of influences. Other people stimulate or depress us. Events at the office or in our social life distract us. Such things seduce us into following ways that are unsuitable to our individuality. Whether or not we are aware of the effect they have on our consciousness, it is disturbed by and exposed to them, almost without defense. This is especially the case with a person whose extroverted attitude of mind lays all the emphasis upon external objects, or who harbors feelings of inferiority and doubt concerning his own innermost personality. The more that consciousness is influenced by prejudices, errors, fantasies, and infantile wishes, the more the already existing gap will widen into a neurotic dissociation and lead to a more or less artificial life, far removed from healthy instincts, nature, and truth. The general function of dreams is to try to restore our psychological balance by producing dream material that reestablishes in a subtle way the total psychic equilibrium. I'm on page 72. I'm going to read this passage here, then skip over to the bottom of page 73 to include a statement there. What we call civilized consciousness has steadily separated itself from the basic instincts, but these instincts have not disappeared. They've merely lost their contact with our consciousness and are thus forced to assert themselves in an indirect fashion. This may be by means of physical symptoms in the case of a neurosis, or by means of incidents of various kinds like unaccountable moods, unexpected forgetfulness, or mistakes in speech. A man likes to believe that he is the master of his soul, but as long as he is unable to control his moods and emotions, or to be conscious of the myriad secret ways in which unconscious factors insinuate themselves into his arrangements and decisions, he's certainly not his own master. These unconscious factors owe their existence to the autonomy of the archetypes. Modern man protects himself against seeing his own split state by a system of compartments. Certain areas of outer life and of his own behavior are kept, as it were, in separate drawers and are never confronted with one another. Skipping over here. If we could see our shadow, the dark side of our nature, we should be immune to any moral and mental infection and insinuation. As matters now stand, we lay ourselves open to every infection. Page 93. In a period of human history when all available energy is spent in the investigation of nature, very little attention is paid to the essence of man, which is his psyche, although many researches are made into its conscious functions. But the really complex and unfamiliar part of the mind, from which symbols are produced, is still virtually unexplored. It seems almost incredible that though we receive signals from it every night, deciphering these communications seems too tedious for any but a very few people to be bothered with it. Man's greatest instrument, his psyche, is little thought of, and it is often directly mistrusted and despised. It's only psychological too often means it is nothing. Where exactly does this immense prejudice come from? We've obviously been so busy with the question of what we think that we entirely forget to ask what the unconscious psyche thinks about us. The ideas of Sigmund Freud confirm for most people the existing contempt for the psyche. Before him, it had been merely overlooked and neglected. It has now become a dump for moral refuse. This modern standpoint is surely one-sided and unjust. It does not even accord with the known facts. Our actual knowledge of the unconscious shows that it is a natural phenomenon, and that, like nature herself, it is at least neutral. It contains all aspects of human nature, light and dark, beautiful and ugly, good and evil, profound and silly. The study of individual as well as of collective symbolism is an enormous task, and one that has not yet been mastered, but a beginning has been made at last. The early results are encouraging, and they seem to indicate an answer to many so far unanswered questions of present-day mankind. Page 145. Those who have to learn to face death may have to relearn the old message that tells us that death is a mystery for which we must prepare ourselves in the same spirit of submission and humility as we once learned to prepare ourselves for life. Page 184. Somewhere, right at the bottom of one's own being, one generally does know where one should go and what one should do. But there are times when the clown we call I behaves in such a distracting fashion that the inner voice cannot make its presence felt. Sometimes all attempts to understand the hints of the unconscious fail, and in such a difficulty, one can only have the courage to do what seems to be right while being ready to change course if the suggestions of the unconscious should suddenly point in another direction. It may also happen, although this is unusual, that a person will find it better to resist the urge of the unconscious, even at the price of feeling warped by doing so, rather than depart too far from the state of being human. Page 266. Suppressed instincts can gain control of a man. They can even destroy him. The familiar dream, in which the dreamer is pursued by an animal, nearly always indicates that an instinct has been split off from the consciousness and ought to be, or is trying to be, readmitted and integrated into life. The more dangerous the behavior of the animal in the dream, the more unconscious is the primitive and instinctual soul of the dreamer, and the more imperative is its integration into his life if some irreparable evil is to be forestalled. Suppressed and wounded instincts are the dangers threatening civilized man. Uninhibited drives are the dangers threatening primitive man. In both cases, the animal is alienated from its true nature, and for both, the acceptance of the animal soul is the condition for wholeness and a fully lived life. Primitive man must tame the animal in himself and make it his helpful companion. Civilized man must heal the animal in himself and make it his friend. Page 303. To put it in simple, non-scientific terms, nuclear physics has robbed the basic units of matter of their absolute concreteness. It has made matter mysterious. Paradoxically, mass and energy, wave and particle, have proved to be interchangeable. The laws of cause and effect have become valid only up to a certain point. It does not matter at all that these relativities, discontinuities, and paradoxes hold good only on the margins of our world, only for the infinitely small, the atom, and the infinitely great, the cosmos. They have caused a revolutionary change in the concept of reality, for a new, totally different, and irrational reality has dawned behind the reality of our natural world, which is ruled by the laws of classical physics. Corresponding relativities and paradoxes were discovered in the domain of the psyche. Here, too, another world dawned on the margin of the world of consciousness, governed by new and hitherto unknown laws that are strangely akin to the laws of nuclear physics. The parallelism between nuclear physics and the psychology of the collective unconscious was often a subject of discussion between Jung and Wolfgang Pauli, the Nobel Prize winner in physics. The space-time continuum of physics and the collective unconscious can be seen, so to speak, as the outer and inner aspects of one and the same reality behind appearances. In June, I returned to externalizing study of a book a week with Book 59, Panic Free, the 10-day program to end panic, anxiety, and claustrophobia by Tom Bunn. I'll be putting a full-time, disciplined effort into offering treasure from these books, in order that Biocadence members who don't have the time to read at such a high volume can still benefit from the tools these books offer. And in order that Biocadence members can more aptly determine which books relate most closely to their unique life circumstances, and thereby be more motivated to read those books thoroughly themselves. Each weekday, I will wake early to meditate, record a guided meditation informed by recent readings, read 2 to 3 hours, isolate the treasures that I find in that reading, loop in what other scholars have had to say about the focus topics addressed in these treasures, then package this in a comprehensive way so that Biocadence members can spend 3 to 10 minutes per day on material that took me many hours to maneuver through. Additionally, here are some of my future plans. Beginning in September, I will reserve 1 to 2 hours per week to do complimentary one-on-one expansion sessions, and in 2020, my goal is to start a podcast. I've already received offers to interview some of the authors I feature through Biocadence, and I'm ruminating over the potential for interviews with Biocadence members so that the Biocadence community can open informed interactive opportunity. I'm taking a leap in this work rather than re-entering the traditional workforce because I've determined that it is the optimal way for me to offer my love and my synthesis of all that I learned through my studies with as many people as possible. Needless to say, this will be at least a full-time effort. It feels vulnerable and exhilarating. The support of Biocadence members means so much to me. It feels like a symbol of faith that you think this project has a place and that I can do it. To become a member, go to biocadence.org.